going on, Russell Wayne and the Main Event 365 Network? This is Jason Kabinda from the Detroit Lions. Here to give y'all a shout out, man. We appreciate all the support, man. I know you guys are big fans. Know that you guys are rooting for us to take the North this year, and we're going to do just that, man. Appreciate you guys so much. Just want to give y'all a shout out. Y'all have a great day.
Oh, yeah, it is that time of the day. Welcome one, welcome all. It's the Main Event 365 phone sessions. I am your host, Russell Wayne. Thank you for watching us here on Detroit Lions News. And we're here to talk some football today. And that's what we do each and every day. And you can follow us, Main Event 365 on Facebook, or you could subscribe to the YouTube channel. All of that stuff is free, and we appreciate when you do that. So if you are watching, give me a little shout out into the comments, and we're going to have some football conversations here today. And we might have something different than a football conversation. I'd like to open up right here if you're a Pistons fan. There we are. Kind of feel like this for the Pistons, don't you? Do you kind of feel bad for the Pistons? I'm kind of feeling bad for the Pistons, so I kind of wanted to, shed some light here. The Pistons had the best odds to get the number one pick in the draft and get a generational talent from France. I don't know a lot about basketball. We don't really cover basketball all that much on here, but it is worthy to note in a Detroit sports city that did kind of hurt our feelings a little bit. And do you kind of feel like that? You kind of feel like we suck again from Waterboy a little bit. Anybody got a comment on that? Throw your comment in there. If you're a Pistons fan and you feel kind of jaded, because it just seems like the Pistons over and over again, when they have these best draft chances, they very rarely win that number one pick, and actually they've been going down when they do that lottery for most of the time. So I just wanted to make a little mention that we are feeling you, Detroit Pistons. A little bit of the bad luck, but we're some of the good luck right here. We're talking about Jared Goff. The ultimate question now, right, is now that they've invested a third-round pick into Hendon Hooker, the overall feeling that I'm getting from the Detroit Lion fan base is that he's the heir apparent to Jared Goff, right? And I was talking to Kenny Ostick in the comment, and he's thinking that we should extend him right now, because in a year or two, it might cost $60 million to get a top level quarterback. So Kenny's saying extend him right now, and then see how he plays. If he plays well, we might be able to get a first-round pick for this guy. And then Hendon Hooker being the heir apparent, you give him a year or two to work out in this offense. What do you think about that? Let me know in the comments if you're paying attention. Quarterback conversations to me are always very, very interesting. And if you guys don't talk to me, I'm going to have to get Main Event Mike on the phone and see if he'll have a conversation with me, because he knows that Goff is one of my favorite topics in the entire world. So throw a comment in there. Keeping Goff as a starting quarterback keeps the Lions' Super Bowl window open for 3 or 4 years. Moving on from him too soon could shorten that window or close it altogether. Now that's fan side Andrew Edraman on why Goff should be the franchise quarterback here for years to come. I mean, Hendon Hooker, I mean, is he the heir apparent or was that just value? Was that just value in the third round? Was that just the highest guy that was on the board? And they just got value there, you know? So, looks like we got main event Mike. We got main event Mike. Let me see if I can get him on the line. Hold on, Mike. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I'm here.
You're here. Hold on. Let me get you hooked in. I got to hook my Bluetooth up. But we are live. We are live. This is in the Detroit Lions news right here and right now. We're talking about my favorite subject, Jared Goff. We'll put up a post yesterday, and it says, keeping Goff as the starting quarterback keeps the Lions Super Bowl window open for 3 to 4 years. Moving on from him too soon could shorten the window or close it altogether. Would you like to respond to that? I see what you did there. Yeah, I said I see what you did there. We used our own example, and I like that. I mean, that's yeah, and it worked. It absolutely is, and what is evidence? It's evidence by the draft picks. It's evidence by what they're doing in this off season that will tell you that they're going for it. I mean, the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson signing, that to me a 1-year deal. That tells me that they feel like they're 1 or 2 pieces away, and then they drafting the way that they did. So we had a couple people that were commenting in here. I don't know if you are. Can you see the broadcast or no? Okay, so Kenny Ostick says, keep him, extend him, and then in a year or two, if Hooker is showing that he can be better than Goff, he can trade him for a first-round pick or something like that, because he is going to do well in this offense, I believe. So that sounds familiar, doesn't it, Mike? Yeah, but wouldn't that be full circle? Is what we were talking about this the other day, Mike. The full circle for this Matt Stafford trade would be, to get that kind of pull for him, and then get Jared Goff in that trade, draft your heir apparent for the future, get Hendon Hooker ready, and then trade him for a first-round pick to finish that whole cycle of Brad Holmes awesomeness. To me. Right. 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 Yeah. Hey, it's free speech, man. We can say whatever we want, right? Right. 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 I I feel you, man. And I got a good comment right here from Michael. I'm sorry, I'm not going to even try to pronounce that your last name, man. That is uh, I'm going to say Mike T. Mike T says, with Goff already playing in a Super Bowl but did not win, this experience would be helpful for the Lions as the team overall. Now, another question is how many of the existing players, coaches have this type of experience that can be shared with the team as a whole? Right. Right. So there's one for sure. Yep. I well, no, I thought he was with the Falcons. Yeah. But I mean, but coaches wise, I mean, Dan Campbell. I mean, he won a Super Bowl there as a position coach, right in New Orleans. Um, you would say you're talking Super Bowl experience, right? On the coach's end, I mean, what about Aaron Glenn? I mean, didn't he had some playoff experience as a player? Right, right. Yeah, I mean, them bringing in those types of guys, right? I mean, Cameron Sutton, it may not have been to a Super Bowl, but they say that he's the a type of leader, and I think that's what you're really looking for is people that have the experience to do uh, the big things and the big moments of the game, because it all comes down to a couple plays, and and I think that Holmes has prided himself on finding those types of guys that play good in the big moments. You know what I'm saying? And that's a good question though, Michael. Thank you for the comment. And if you can think of some players that are with the Lions right now, coaches that have playoff Super Bowl experience, and throw that into the comments, that would be great. And yeah, what's that like? Yeah, that's what we want to know. And for anybody that's looking at us going, "Oh yeah, there's a bunch of Lions fans try to talk about Lombardi's." It's like, yeah, you're right. We don't know anything about that. We want to know about that, but we know enough about football to know that this team right here for the Lions is a very very good team, and I really honestly can't think of a team that has made me more excited since I've been watching football than this team right here. Are they overhyped? Are they Super Bowl contenders? I mean, that remains to be seen, but they've definitely done enough on paper to at least have that type of conversation, in my opinion. What do you think about that, Mike? We did it yesterday. Right. Yeah, for sure, and as we do talk, this is the off season, ladies and gentlemen. And if you just started tuning in, this is Main Event 365. This is the phone sessions. I got Main Event Mike on the line, and we were just talking about Jared Goff. We were talking about being Super Bowl contenders for the Lions, but we also want to go into the rest of the NFC North. And all of the stuff that I'm showing you guys right now is right on the Main Events Facebook page. Give us a like, give us a follow. I mean, we keep up very good on the whole entire NFC North. And here's an article right here that has Joe Barry here, quotable. Joe Barry is on the hot seat, and you can argue that the entire defense is now under even more pressure to carry a rookie quarterback and live up to that expenditure. And then the headline says Joe Barry has a plethora of first-round talent on defense. Mike, Main Event Mike, do you think that Joe Barry is on the hot seat as a defense coordinator? Well, I mean, I would argue that Goody is a very good. He's a good GM. I think that he's given Joe Barry a whole bunch of first round talent on that defensive line, and he gave him a whole bunch more talent on that defensive line. So to me, if they don't have a top 10 defense, I think that you gotta question the guy, you know. Right. So can I see? Okay, I'm gonna agree with half of that because I think that he could be a good GM, and this year is really going to decide that because we don't know what Jordan Love is, man. I mean, it's nice to think that maybe their record would be 2-1 on Hall of Fame quarterbacks. I mean, we all want to believe that, right? But we don't know what Jordan Love is, and if this kid is good, Mike, then we may have to eat some crow right here, and Joe Barry does. I mean, they use all of their first round talent on defense, so they're using that. So maybe Joe Barry, maybe it is Joe Barry, maybe it is Gutekunst, but this year's going to decide that. I got a couple comments in here I wanted to go through. Right. All right. Well, it's the chicken or the egg that we're gonna find this out because Aaron Rodgers is out, and we get to find out if it was Aaron Rodgers holding the hostage of the organization, or was it the organization just dropping the ball and Aaron Rodgers just wanting to get out? Robert Williams says that CJ Gardner-Johnson just played in his Super Bowl. That was a take from earlier right there, and that is great experience. That's a great reason to bring him there. Rob Turbo says that he has just subscribed to the YouTube channel. I appreciate that. We are eventually going to be moving all the way over to that. So I want to get everybody to subscribe to the Main Events YouTube channel. We want to be able to, run. The chats are a lot more fun on that. Robert also says that Brandon Marshall said that he'd come out of retirement to play with Aaron Rodgers in New York, but he's 39, but you never know. Yeah, go ahead and respond to that, Mike. I wanted to make fun of it, but I wanted to give you a chance to make. I don't know if you're being serious, Rob, or not, but Brandon Marshall, you got. I think the corpse of Jordy Nelson's coming out of retirement. I mean, come on, man. I don't know. I don't know about that. Robert Williams says, I think that we can make a run at the Super Bowl, but outside of St. Brown, I'm worried about our wide receiver corps. So let's talk about our wide receiver corps, Mike. Yeah, I mean, I can hear you just fine. So, can you hear? Can you hear Main Event Mike, or is this just going silent right here? Because I can hear him just fine. In mine, I got him connected to the Bluetooth. But can you guys hear Main Event Mike at all out there? So, because right now, go ahead, sit. Mike's gonna sing a song. Go hard, win this game. No, they can't. They're not able to hear you. I don't know why they can't hear you, Mike. Oh man. Nope, nothing from Mike. That sucks, man. We're having a great conversation right here, and I don't know. Okay. So what we're talking about here, yeah, that was Main Event on the line that you guys couldn't hear. So I guess I'll recap right here. Robert Williams says that I think that we can make a little run outside of the Super Bowl, but outside of St. Brown, I'm worried about our wide receiver core. So, and what I wanted to say to that is I think that we do have some decent wide receivers outside. I think that Josh Reynolds is a very good wide receiver. He caught some touchdowns last year. And it is a little bit of a hit to have Jameson Williams being gone. But I mean, what is our number? We got Khalif Raymond, we got Josh Reynolds, we got Amon-Ra St. Brown, we just brought in Marvelous Marvin Jones. I mean, these are like I think they're like number 3 wide receivers, but they're solid guys that can be there. And I think that they're going to use Jahmyr Gibbs in the slot a lot as a wide receiver, even with Montgomery out there. Dual sets. Can you hear me talking, Rob? I just want to make sure. So, but I'll just keep on talking anyway. But make sure if you can hear me, somebody comment that they can hear me. One of the 4 people. I am. Yes. Okay. Awesome. So you can hear me. So Rob, you're concerned about Goff. He hasn't been consistent, and you know that these talents. He plays like Cousins. Yeah, that's kind of a funny thing because we threw an article up yesterday about Cousins, hitting 4,000 yards 4 times. And I think that Goff and Kirk Cousins have a lot in common. I think that both of those quarterbacks are unappreciated because I think with this NFL, like what people really like in a quarterback, what I'm starting to find out is they want to see exciting plays, right? They want to see they want to see a quarterback that can escape the pocket, right? He can make a play when everything breaks down. But here's the problem with that. If that's all that you're looking for, you're talking about, maybe 4 or 5 plays in a game, and the other plays in the game, we need you to be a good, fundamentally sound quarterback, right? And that's what Kirk Cousins is, and that's what Jared Goff is. Where what we want, what our eyes tell us because it's exciting, is that we want a mobile quarterback that can make stuff happen, a playmaker, right? But that's not what Goff is he? He's not a playmaking quarterback. He's a distributor. He's better at, if you put him in a position to where he can get the ball into a playmaker's hands. He's not the playmaker. He is a distributor. So when you surround him with guys like Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, any one of those tight ends, the 3 tight ends not named TJ Hawkinson that had 12 touchdowns last year. You got Greg Reynolds, you got David Montgomery. You got playmakers all over the place to where you can get Goff, the Goffense, into a rhythm of being able to get the ball out of his hands fast and into playmakers' hands. Now, what are the things that they had in common with the guys that they drafted that were offensive playmakers, right? Jahmyr Gibbs, breaking tackles, receiving threat, weapon. You can literally line up Jahmyr Gibbs in any place that you see a mismatch, and you have to cover him. So, and Goff is set up very accurate when he is kept clean. Our offensive line is awesome. So when I say Goff is going to be good or Cousins is good, that all determines all of the things that are around that player, right? So with Goff being surrounded with all these playmakers and a good offensive line, he's put in the best position for his skill set, which he's a very good distributor. I mean, he can make the throw when he needs to make the throw. I mean, there was no bigger throw than in Lambeau Field on 4th and 2 hitting DJ Shark. Now, I'm glad that DJ Shark caught the ball, but Goff put it on him. You don't get any more pressure than that. That's the biggest moment, and he did it. He did it in the Jets game. He did it last year in the home game versus the Minnesota Vikings. So, I know I got off base, but I'm not concerned about. I'm not really concerned about how Goff and his consistency, because I think that they've put him in a position to play well, right? And you've drafted a quarterback. Yeah, we were just talking about that. we just drafted a quarterback in the 3rd round that can be a developmental quarterback, right? So Robert comes back at me and says, I think Goff is back to who he was before he lost his confidence. There's something to be said about that. I know it's so easy just to, point all the dirty finger at Goff because he was the one that just got discarded, right? The Rams discarded Goff. They gave him no worth. It was just a contract dump. And they even gave us an extra 1st-round pick just to take the contract because they totally didn't believe in him. But what they don't know is that the whole scandal that came out with McVay, with Goff and McVay's wife and all this garbage, it happened. And they fell out of touch with each other. So I don't care if you're Tom frickin' Brady, that if you fall out of touch with with where you're going and you lose focus in that, and your head coach loses focus in that, because it's really easy to give McVay all of the props, right? It was all McVay and his defense, and it was just the defense. Goff didn't do anything to get them there, right? You can't take any credit. He's just Goff. He got carried there, right? And then when things start going wrong, well, obviously it's all Goff's fault. So he took all of the blame for everything that happened there. And I know Goff believes that if he had that loaded team with Aaron Donald and Von Miller and that legendary defense that held Joe Burrow to 0 points in the last 8 minutes, that he could have won that Super Bowl too with that same team that Stafford did. I know that Goff believes that. I don't know if any of you out there believe that. I don't even know if I believe that. But I think that they're very different quarterbacks. But Jared Goff can lead this team. Brad Holmes has built the type of team that, I should say, definitely offensively, that Goff can win in. He had his best season. Since before he lost his confidence. But he was a big part in writing this Goffense. This Goffense was something special, even in the 45-point loss, where they scored 45 points and lost 48-45 to the Philadelphia Eagles, or I don't know which one it was, them in Seattle, where the defense didn't even force a punt. Historically bad defense. And Goff was solid through the whole thing. Don't you think? Don't you think that Goff has been solid through this whole thing? The fact that he got discarded like a piece of trash and came to, at the time, the worst franchise in NFL history. That's what he's had to deal with, right? The whole, and an entire fan base, and you all know who you are, an entire fan base that was just ready to run him out of town, thinking that, the word bridge was used for the first year from 90% of this fan base. Bridge. There ain't no way. It wasn't until recently, when you look at the 8-2 finish and looking how explosive this offense can be with Goff in it, that we started having some people come around and say, okay, just Jared Goff, we can win with this guy. He's not Trent Dilfer, okay? If you drop Jared Goff into the Chicago Bears and was their quarterback, he would instantaneously be the greatest quarterback that Chicago's ever had. Let that sink in, Bear fans. Jared Goff is better than any quarterback that you've ever had. But we're supposed to be worried about Justin Fields. Oh, I just changed the subject again. I got to find. So, is Kirk Cousins overrated? Is Goff overrated? Or really, I think both of these guys are the most underrated QBs in the league by far. By far. Just the fact that you have to argue that they're good with people tells you that they're underrated because they're good. Both of them are good. They're both good quarterbacks. They're both borderline great quarterbacks statistically, right? Last year, Kirk Cousins was perhaps had one of the greatest clutch quarterback stats of all time by any quarterback. That's kind of why you get the fool's gold thing. He ain't gonna be able to reproduce that. That's some nice clutch, but when you start expecting people to just play at that elite level, that's not the way it works. Like even Miguel Cabrera, one of the greatest hitters that we've ever seen, he went into slumps. Even when he won his Triple Crown, he went into a slump. So no quarterback is going to be great like that all time. So I think Cousins is going to regress, but because they didn't do much to really help him. You did draft a wide receiver in the first round, but you also lost a Minnesota Viking a legend right there. But I know I keep on bringing up Kirk Cousins, but I really believe that Cousins and Goff are tied together. Chiefs. So I'm curious. So Rob says, I'm curious to how many Super Bowl rings Stafford would have if he had played for the 49ers in his career instead of Detroit. That is a great question. Because I would argue, you want to talk about that 49ers team. They won a playoff game against the Green Bay Packers throwing 6 freaking passes. That's how good that defense is. If they had below average quarterback play, they would have probably won the last 4 Super Bowls. I mean, they all they've needed is stability in that quarterback room. I mean, San Francisco's had a top 5 defense for the last 10 years, it seems like, doesn't it? Doesn't it seem like that? But we're talking about these Lions, though. You think the Lions defense? Let's talk about the Lions defense. I think that the Lions defense is a lot better. Let's talk about that defense. What do you think about the defense? I think that you could break our defense down to a tale of 2 tapes, right? You had the 1-6 tape. That's like we're talking some historically bad. That was the worst stretch of defensive football in the backfield, giving up points. I mean, you let Geno Smith look like Joe Montana and Lamar Jackson had a baby. I'm sorry, I stole that with Main Event Mike's. He said that last year, right after that loss. It's like, and that's where the term "Goffense" got coined, right after that Seattle game. Right? It's like, here's this guy. You would think, wow, Rob, look at that. That's bold. I like that. Rob's defense should be a top 3 to 5 this year. So we were arguing this, and there's part of me that can agree with believing that the Lions could take a jump in the defense like that. Now, for one, if we're talking about the tail of 2, you got the 1-6 side, and then you have the 8-2 run to finish, right? Now, during that 1-6 run, they averaged like 31 points. It was something ridiculous. It was so bad, like giving up 31 points a game on average. And then during the 8-2 stretch, it was like 19 points a game, which was like top 15, which was much better. And I think that there were parts of it that were top 10 during the last 6-game stretch. So Robert Williams says, I'm ready to see how Glenn uses these pieces in the secondary. And that's where we really improved. I mean, the secondary was atrocious last year. Oruwariye in that Minnesota game. I mean, can you believe that? I mean, like 5 penalties in a row on Thielen. He had no answer for Thielen. Viking fans, if you think that you're not going to miss Thielen. So then you trade Jeff Okudah. I mean, Jerry Jacobs proved that he can be an NFL cornerback, a legitimate number 2 cornerback. I like that piece right there. And then you bring in Cameron Sutton, Emmanuel Mosley. Let's talk about Cameron Sutton for a second. Now, the things that I heard about Cameron Sutton, everything that I read about Cameron Sutton, all the coaches that had coached him said that he's one of the smartest players that they've ever been around. Every one of the coaches that coached him, I mean, this is a guy that worked his butt up, undersized, you know, and proved that he could be an NFL cornerback. And, you know, his targets against percentage was top 5 last year. That is one hell of a pickup right there in Cameron Sutton. And not just, he's not a lockdown corner, guys. Cameron Sutton is not a lockdown corner, but what he can do is he has position versatility. He can play the number 1 corner. He can play number 2. He can play in the slot. He can even play in the box, you know, lined up in that safety role. Emmanuel Mosley. Let's move on to him. Now, this guy is another guy that worked his way on because of injury. He got opportunity. And this guy was slated to make like $16 million a year if he hadn't got injured last year. And he will be ready for the season. And this guy, Emmanuel Mosley, I don't know if you remember the game last year where DK Metcalf took Jeff Okudah to Spanky Town. I mean, he had no answer for the strength of Jeff Okudah. And Emmanuel Mosley has owned DK Metcalf 2 games a year since he's been there. Every bit of tape that I've ever seen. And that's a good pickup right there. I definitely think is a solid 1-1-2 right there. And then you got Jerry Jacobs as depth. You brought in Brian Branch in the 2nd round. He's a guy that's versatile. He can actually play cornerback. He can play in the slot. Same type of thing. He brought in Chauncey Gardner. God, he was just in the Super Bowl. He's got a little spice to his play too. So when I'm ready to see how Glenn uses these pieces. I think one of the things that they all have in common is that they can all play anywhere. So when these guys line up, I'm not sure that they're going to be showing what positions that they're going to be playing. So I think that they're going to line these guys up all over the place. And Glenn is going to be able to disguise a lot of these coverages because of that. So, yeah, Rob, giving props. Yeah, they're top 3 to 5 right there. We're going to remember this take. We'll remember this take. We'll remember that Rob said it, they were going to be a top 3 to 5 defense, and he said it in May. He said it May 17th. He lined up in their backfield. Yeah, I think that you have to be talking about a Warrior on that play. That it's a legendary pick if you look on the internet, where he's lined up like 3 yards in the back. I'm like, hey, you're looking down the line, you can't see that you're offsides, buddy. Come on, man. Come on. So when these guys went out the door, I wasn't crying too hard when a Warrior signed with a different team. Wasn't crying too hard when they trade Jeff Okudah. You know, I gave Jeff Okudah a chance. I gave him a chance. He just he didn't live up to it here, you know. And just like Charles Harris came here and resurrected his career coming from Atlanta, maybe he can go to Atlanta, you know, and a new scenery. He'll have a chance to compete to be a starter there. He won't have to be the number 1 starter because they got Terrell already. So that's a good memory right there. Larry says Bought season tickets for the first time ever. Congratulations. I do like that. Have they earned your respect enough? A lot of people said they weren't going to buy it. I'm not going to put any money into this product until they show me they can do some stuff. And I think Holmes is the truth. This is different. This is different than it's been, because I'm watching the Lions do what, over previous years I would praise other teams for doing, because those are the right things. So what type of depth does Detroit, what type of depth does Detroit have, since this is a very long season? We have a lot of talent. Looking forward to your input. Thanks. I think that we have tremendous depth. That is the biggest strength. So at the beginning of the offseason, I was asked this question and I almost got laughed out, but let me tee this up for you. I think that we have awesome depth, and what we needed was high end. We need high end talent that we can just drop into these rooms and just like push everybody down the depth chart, right? And in every single position, I think that there's depth, and people that aren't going to make our team are probably going to go to other teams and be able to make an impact, especially with this illusion that we needed a pass rusher. So what type of depth I think the number one depth position that we have is that pass rusher. Like everybody was saying that we needed Will Anderson and we needed, Tyree Wilson, all that stuff. They're great pieces. That would be great, but they would just be going into a room full of dogs, and he would just be a dog too, and that would be fine. But when you think of the depth that we have at pass rusher, it isn't just Hutchinson, right? We invested a second-round pick last year in Josh Paschal, who was a 4-year captain and played through some injuries last year, but started coming on at the end of the season. He's a guy that can play inside and outside. Romeo Okwara and Charles Harris. These are two additions that were on the team, but they were injured last year, but they're going to be additions because they're not injured this year. Romeo Okwara in 2021 had 10 sacks. He was our starting pass rusher. This guy is now depth. He took a pay cut because Aiden Hutchinson and James Houston are the pass rushers, primary pass rushers. But Romeo Okwara can play inside and out. Charles Harris had 7 sacks before his injury. So these are two additions they're making. Those are just like depth pieces. They brought back John Kaminsky, the commish. I love our pass rushing room, and then in the defensive tackle, they just drafted Broderick Martin. You already had Aleem McNeil there, brought back Isaiah Buggs. I mean, you got some guys that are going to be able to put some pressure on the quarterback. And the reason they weren't getting home as much was because our secondary was trash. The secondary was trash. This new secondary that they got, these pieces that they brought in, I think will give our pass rush at least an extra 2 seconds to get at the quarterback. And with his talent, oh my gosh. When you think of the 10 sacks that Hutchinson had last year, well, this guy's only going to progress, right? He's learning. He's going to have a full off season to get into that. Same thing with James Houston. Same thing with Josh Paschal. Same thing with Malcolm Rodriguez. So I think they have awesome depth. You like take the Jack Campbell pick, Michael. Take the Jack Campbell pick. Like you had Alex Anzalone, you had Malcolm Rodriguez and Barnes, and these guys. That was a nice little room right there. You have a nice guy because we only run 2 linebackers. Only 2 of those guys are usually out there at a time. Now you drop Jack Campbell. You drop Jack Campbell right into the middle of that room, right? Maybe he's not the number 1, but he's definitely the number 1 or 2 that you have provided. You've expanded that room, and all of a sudden you got a solid room, right? Then you take the secondary. They've revamped the secondary. You got depth pieces. The thing about depth, Michael, is that the guys that they bring in and the guys that they're targeting are multi-talented. That they can play different positions. So they may be starting in one spot and be, a backup to another spot in crunch situations, right? Like on offensive line. Let's take that for example. Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker are interchangeable tackles. Like if one of them goes down, the other, like if Penei, if Decker were to go down, Penei Sewell has proven he can play left tackle, right? Then you have your swing tackle with like not the guy they just brought in. I can't think of what his name is. Oh my, going through my mind. I don't know. They just drafted a guy in the 5th round. That is going to be able to develop in that spot. At guard, you got Jonah Jackson, probably up for an extension this year, right? Then you got Haloti Booty Vaitai on the other side. We haven't even seen this full offensive line. I can't wait to see these guys. Haloti Booty Vaitai solidifies that right guard. He didn't even let a sack in 2021. So then you bring in Graham Glasgow, who I think is an upgrade over Evan Brown. Evan Everywhere Brown. Well, Glasgow does the same thing. He does old school center, and he can play both guard positions, and he plays them. He plays them better than what Evan Brown did. So I like their depth at offensive line. Even their depth at wide receiver. Those guys may not be the game-breaking wide receivers, but Josh Reynolds is a good wide receiver. Khalif Raymond was probably one of our most clutch wide receivers that we had last year. All that dude did was make big catches last year. Wouldn't you agree with that? Heck yeah. I love that. Thank you for the comment, Mike. I think we have great depth. Rob says that Joe Burrow is showing openness to a contract that may shift all the elite quarterback deals. Yeah. I mean, getting this deal done with Goff, if they're going to do it, the sooner the better, just because it is going to be more expensive. I mean, the cap keeps going up, but the price of these players keeps going up and up. So Robert says, I like the Campbell pick. He has size and speed. He reminds me of Urlacher. Yeah, that was my favorite pick. I screamed. I'm going to admit, Robert, I screamed like a little girl when that pick came through, because that was one of my most favorite picks. I loved all the interviews pre-draft. I was like, whoever gets this guy is going to have a stud linebacker for the next 10 years, because he's the best in coverage. He's going to be able to cover tight ends. I mean, what has been the ownership of Lions defense over the last 5 years is tight ends just do whatever they want against us. That we just drafted the kryptonite to that at 18th overall, Jack Campbell. I'm up against it right here, man. I got an awesome little 4-year-old autistic son that I get to get off the bus. I get to get him off of the bus here in about 15 minutes. So I'm going to hop off of here. I've had a great conversation here, talking to myself and talking to Robert, talking to Rob Turbo. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Larry. Who else we got in here? Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Michael, again. We have a couple different Robs in here. So thank you for listening. Thank you to the Detroit Lions News. And like I say, man, go to the Main Event 365 Facebook page. Give us a follow. Go to our YouTube. Give us a subscribe. We love talking football. Football 365. This is our Detroit Lions Homer Show. We do this every day at 11 a.m. God bless you guys. Thank you so much for listening and watching. And I will see you guys. One Pride.